simply say, I would not want to be in any other place than this spot to stand with you to let the world know that we gonna stay in contact with the humanity of our brothers and sisters who are disproportionately chocolate, but whatever color they are, we stand with them no matter what the system has to say. Oh yeah. We come with the spirit of John Coltrane. It's a love supreme. It's a love supreme. And when you love folk, you can't stand the fact they're being treated unjustly. You lose the fact that they're being treated unfairly. And if we don't do something, the rocks are gonna shut out. That's why we're here. We're here to straighten our backs up and let the world know, let the system know, let these folk in this house, the White House, City Hall, anywhere in the nation, that when it comes to the Jim Crow Jr., the new Jim Crow system, we say it is a crime against humanity. That's what it is. Solitary confinement is torture. That's a crime against humanity. To lock folk up when 60% of them are there for soft drugs, and everybody knows 12% of those on the chocolate side, 12% of those on the vanilla side are flying high in the friendly skies every week taking drugs, but 65% of the convictions are chocolate. That just lets us know that the legacy of white supremacy is still operating in America. Oh yeah. But it's not just that, but it's also a class issue. Everybody knows that if not just our precious white and vanilla brothers and sisters, but if middle-class young folk of any color were going to jail at the same level of intensity as our precious poor brothers and sisters, disproportionately chocolate, that'd be a town hall meeting every week. It'd be on ABC, NBC, MSNBC, maybe even Fox News would have to carry it. Let's just tell the truth. The condition of truth is always to allow suffering to speak, just like the love is always connected to justice. Justice is what love looks like in public, just like tenderness is what love feels like in private. And I come from a people, and Sister Barbara knows what I'm talking about. I come from a people who've been terrorized, traumatized, and stigmatized for 400 years, but we still understand what it is to stand up for justice and still connected to a radical tenderness and a militant gentleness and a subversive sweetness, even as we're willing to live and die for the cause of justice. That is what is necessary now. Thank God for Sister Michelle Alexander in her text, The New Jim Crow. Thank God for Angela Davis on the front line for over 40 years. Thank God for Glenn Lowry. Thank God for Mumia Abu-Jamal on the front for over 30-some years. Oh, give all of our political prisoners who have suffered indescribably a hand. Just give them a hand. Let's just stop this moment. We'll never forget their sacrifice. No matter how much they're abused, we'll never forget what they stood up for. See, Brothers Larry, when me in the crowd from Vassar wrote the great text from the history of the black freedom struggle filtered through the black church. Well, we are here because we want to make the connection between the Jim Crow Jr., the new Jim Crow, which is the prison industrial complex, to the Wall Street oligarchic complex, where 1% of the population owns 42% of the wealth, where 40% of our precious red children, brown children, black children live in poverty, where 22% of all of our precious children live in poverty in the richest nation of the history of the world. That is morally obscene and spiritually profane. There's a connection between wrestling with these issues and wrestling with what Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life at the end, connecting eradicating poverty with the military-industrial complex, the imperial policies. When we talk about the precious lives of our young people here, we have to connect it to the children who have been murdered by the U.S. government with drones dropping bombs on them. 223 and counting. No serious public discussion about it. A nation loses whatever soul that it has if it thinks that somehow it can be callous and indifferent when it comes to the suffering of anybody. I don't care what color, I don't care what country, I don't care what civilization, I don't care what sexual orientation, I don't care what ethnicity. Oh yes, and that's the tradition that I come out of. Yeah, that's the tradition of Curtis Mayfield and Nina Simone. That's the tradition of Sly Stone. They told us to stand. There's a cross for us to bear, things to go through. If you go in anything, stand. There's a midget standing tall and the giant beside him about to fall. Oh yes. And what we're doing here today, we stand together. Just look at each other. Look at how beautiful you are. Do you know what it means when you coalesce of something bigger than you? You get beyond just your skin pigmentation and your sexual orientation. You start talking about something deep like your humanity, like your morality, like your integrity, like your honesty, like your decency. We want to be a movement of virtue that says in the face of institutionalized vice that we're willing to pay the price and bear the burden. And that's why we here in New York State, and those of us who come from the East Coast, even though I'm from California, I'm a West Coast brother, we want to be on the cutting edge. And we heard Brother Hayden laid out and talking about Attica and the Attica laws that tried to so oftentimes render so many of our precious folk invisible. We have to make the connection between the poverty on the one hand, the legacy of white supremacy and male supremacy and anti-Jewish hatred and anti-Arab hatred and anti-Muslim hatred and homophobia all together, but also connected to the oligarchs and the plutocrats, the big banks and the big corporations who get off with impunity. It is no accident that not one Wall Street executive has gone to jail, given all the criminality on Wall Street in the last 5 years with market manipulation and insider trading and fraudulent activity. We've got to have a holistic view on this thing. Oh yeah, my dear brother Carl Dixon, so good to see you, always good to see you. We went to jail together for stop and frisk. We now got to stop the mass incarceration, now having a call in October. Give Brother Carl a hand, give our dear brother a hand. Love you, Brother Carl. But I'm going to sit down because it's time to move to our artists. And when it comes to struggling against injustice, the arts are not ornamental or decorative. They are integral and constitutive of who we are. If you get your music right, if you get your poetry right, if you get your language right, you can get your spirit right. And if you get your spirit right, you can straighten your back up. And for so long, we've been walking around humped over. Brother Martin used to say, anytime those Sly Stone called everyday people walk around hunched over, you're not going anywhere. But oh, when you straighten your backs up, when you hold hands together, when you're organized, bring your organization with somebody else's organization so you don't have to have organizational envy. No, we fighting for not one organization, we fighting for a cause. It's called justice, it's called fairness, it's called equality, and in the end it's called radical democracy. Thank you all for being here. This is just the first step. This is just the first step of where we going